My dad laughed. Not the kind of nervous chuckle you make when you don't know what to say. This was a full, genuine laugh. Maybe dying will make you interesting, he said, leaning back in his chair like he'd just delivered the punchline of the year. I was lying in a hospital bed in the ICU, tubes in my arms, monitors beeping a warning soundtrack I couldn't escape. Sepsis had taken over faster than the doctors expected. My body was fighting for survival. My own father was entertained. That sentence, those 7 words, burned into my mind. I replayed them over and over until the rage drowned out the fear. So I made a decision. I canceled the credit cards, shut off the power, and let foreclosure take the house they loved more than me. This time, I wasn't going to save them. People always assumed my family was close. We had those perfectly staged Christmas photos, matching sweaters, and smiling faces plastered on holiday cards. But those pictures were just glossy covers, hiding the truth that for years, I was their personal safety net, not their daughter. When I landed my first tech job at 22, it felt like I'd won the lottery. The salary was more than I'd ever imagined earning fresh out of college. I thought it meant I could finally help my parents relax, let them enjoy life after years of working hard. And at first it felt good paying off their lingering credit card debt, covering a few bills, just this once. But just this once turned into every month. When Dad's truck needed a 3.0 transmission repair, I paid. When Mom decided the kitchen needed a remodel, I signed the check. When my older brother Derek couldn't keep up with his rent after losing yet another job, I covered it even though he spent his weekends drinking in Vegas. It didn't take long for my family to start expecting it. No thank you cards, no offers to pay me back. Just silence until the next emergency arrived. By the time I was 27, I was covering my parents' mortgage, Derek's car insurance, and half the utilities for a house I didn't even live in. If I ever hesitated or asked why, they'd guilt me. We raised you, Harper. Family helps each other. It's just money, you'll make more. I told myself they cared in their own way, that maybe they just didn't know how to express it. But deep down, I knew better. Their love was transactional, and I was the one making all the transactions. The cracks in our relationship widened the year before my ICU stay. I'd started setting small boundaries, saying no to funding Derek's business idea, refusing to pay for Mom's cosmetic surgery. They didn't like that. Dad went cold, Mom complained to relatives about my selfishness, and Derek simply stopped calling unless he needed something. Still, I never imagined they'd abandon me in a hospital bed. When the pneumonia hit, it felt like a bad flu at first. Within days, I could barely breathe. By the time I was rushed to the ER, my oxygen levels were dangerously low. I remember thinking, at least my family will be here soon. But the first text I got wasn't, "We're on our way." It was a photo. Dad, drink in hand, grinning on a Las Vegas golf course. Caption: living my best life. I stared at that photo as the nurse adjusted my oxygen mask, and something inside me began to splinter. I just didn't realize yet that this was the start of the end. The day everything snapped started at 4:12 a.m. A nurse's voice pulled me from a fevered haze. "Harper, your temperature's spiking again. We need to run more labs." Her face was calm, but I caught the quick glance she exchanged with the attending physician. My lungs burned with every shallow breath, and my hands shook under the blanket. They told me later I was already in the early stages of sepsis. I just remember the fear, the kind that makes you want to hear a familiar voice, someone who will tell you you're going to be okay. So I reached for my phone. Dad and Mom lived less than 3 hours away. Derek was even closer. I figured they'd drop everything when they heard. The first call went to Dad. It rang twice before going to voicemail. I tried Mom voicemail. Derek picked up on the 4th ring, his voice groggy. "What's up? It's early. I'm in the ICU," I said, my throat raw. "It's bad, Derek. Can you get Mom and Dad and come here?" A pause. "Yeah, probably not. They're in Vegas this weekend. Dad's got some golf thing. Mom's at the spa. I'm here for the blackjack tables." I thought I'd misheard. "You're in Vegas too?" "Yeah, why?" "Because I'm in a hospital bed with an infection that might kill me, that's why." He sighed, like I was overreacting. "Look, I'll let them know, but it's all prepaid. Flights, hotels, you get it. I hung up without another word. Hours later, I got my answer not through a call, but through social media. My father had posted a group shot from the golf course. 3 men in polo shirts, beers in hand, the desert sun blazing behind them. Caption: good times with great friends. Life's too short. Life's too short. I was scrolling through those photos, seething, when my phone buzzed. A text from Dad. Maybe dying will make you interesting? No smiley face, no JK, nothing. Just words cold, deliberate, meant to cut. I stared at the screen, the beeping of the heart monitor syncing with the thud of my pulse. For a moment, I thought I might cry. Instead, I felt something else: clarity. Years of being their safety net, the endless handouts, the guilt trips, all of it aligned into one sharp truth. They didn't see me as a daughter. I was a resource, and I was running out. Lying there, tethered to IV lines, I decided 2 things. 1, I would survive this. 2, when I did, I'd make sure they'd never use me again. The first part was in the doctor's hands. The second was all mine. The next morning, my fever dipped just enough for my head to clear. I lay in that stiff hospital bed, staring at the ceiling tiles, letting Dad's words replay in my mind like a poisoned echo. Maybe dying will make you interesting. They'd chosen a weekend in Vegas over showing up for me. That was bad enough. But mocking me while I was hooked to IVs? That was a line you don't cross. I reached for my phone again, but this time I didn't call them. I opened my banking app. For years, I'd built a safety net they didn't deserve. Automatic transfers to my parents' account for the mortgage. A credit card in their possession for emergencies, which usually meant dinners out and impulsive shopping sprees. Car insurance payments for Derek's truck. Even their internet and utilities were in my name, so they wouldn't have to pass a credit check. I scrolled through the list of recurring payments and started canceling. Mortgage payment? Delete. Car insurance? Terminate coverage. Credit card? Report stolen. The hospital room was silent, except for the steady beep of the heart monitor, and each click felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. When the banking side was clean, I called my financial advisor, Elise. She'd been managing my investments for years. Harper? Oh my God, I heard you were sick. I'm getting better, I said, cutting her off gently. But I need to make some changes. Remove my parents and Derek as beneficiaries on all accounts. Effective immediately. She hesitated. That's a big step. Are you sure? I've never been more sure of anything in my life. Next came my lawyer, Patrick, who'd drawn up my will and given my parents power of attorney back when I thought they'd look out for me. Patrick, I want to revoke the power of attorney and rewrite my will. They're out. All of them. He didn't press for details. Understood. I'll draft the paperwork. By the time I ended that call, I felt lighter. Not physically, my body was still a battlefield, but somewhere deep inside, the weight was shifting. It was almost laughable, how easy it was to dismantle the empire of handouts I'd built for them. A few phone calls, a few keystrokes, and suddenly the well they'd been drinking from was dry. I imagined Derek swiping that credit card at a blackjack table and watching the screen flash declined. I pictured Mom flipping a light switch in their kitchen and finding darkness. I pictured Dad at the golf resort front desk, demanding to charge the room and the clerk shaking their head. It wasn't petty, it was justice. They'd left me alone in the fight for my life. Now, they could learn what it felt like to fend for themselves. And I hadn't even started yet. It didn't take long for the calls to start. The first came that evening, just as I was settling back against the pillows, a cup of lukewarm hospital tea in my hands. Dad's name flashed across the screen. I let it ring out. 2 minutes later, it rang again. This time I answered. Harper, he said, his voice tight. There's something wrong with the credit card. It was declined at dinner. I kept my tone flat. That's strange. Maybe call the bank? We did. They said it was reported stolen. Did you? Yes, I said, cutting him off. While I was lying in the ICU and you were golfing in Vegas, seemed like someone else was using it. Silence. Then, Harper, be reasonable. We're stuck here without money. I thought you paid for the trip yourselves. That's what you told me. Click. I hung up. 5 minutes later, Derek called. What the hell, Harper? You stranded us. The hotel says we need to pay for another night and we can't. Mom's freaking out. Maybe pawn something, I suggested. Or call one of your business partners. You're unbelievable. Funny. That's exactly what I think about you. The calls kept coming, Mom sobbing into the phone, Derek swearing, Dad alternating between calm negotiation and sharp threats. By the third round, I put my phone on silent. Somewhere around midnight, I drifted into the deepest sleep I'd had in years. The next update came the following afternoon from my friend Mia, who had spotted Derek's Instagram story. It was a shaky video of him and Dad arguing with the hotel front desk clerk. The caption read, "Some people just don't understand loyalty." I almost laughed. Loyalty, coming from them, was like hearing a thief complain about getting robbed. 3 days later, I was released from the hospital. I'd lost weight, my muscles felt like jelly, but I was alive, and I was ready. Back in my apartment, I moved on to phase 2, utilities. The electric account in my name? Cancelled. Gas? Cancelled. Internet? Gone. Even their phone plan, which I'd been paying for since Derek was in college, was terminated. That's when the voicemails took a darker turn. "You're ruining us, Harper," Mom's voice cracked. "The bank says they're starting foreclosure proceedings. Do you know what that means?" "Yes," I said to the empty room as I deleted the message. "It means you'll finally have to stand on your own 2 feet. And that was the point. For years, I'd been the cushion between them and the consequences of their own choices. Now, for the first time, they were falling and there was nothing soft to land on. At first, their calls were drenched in desperation, shaky voices, long pauses, words meant to tug at my heart. "Harper, sweetie," Mom whispered in one voicemail. "We made mistakes, but you can't just leave us like this. We're family. We need you." I almost believed her for half a second. Then I remembered her sipping champagne in a Vegas spa while I was struggling to breathe. By the end of that week, the tone had changed. Derek was the first to snap. "You think you're better than us now? Sitting in your fancy apartment while we're freezing? You're a joke, Harper. You'll regret this." I didn't answer. Next came the guilt trip from Dad. "I know things were said, but you've got to understand. We didn't mean them. We were just distracted. Don't punish your whole family over one bad moment." One bad moment. As if years of exploitation could be reduced to a slip of the tongue. Then came the manipulation. A woman named Kayla called, claiming to be a friend of my mom's. She launched into a rehearsed speech about how Mom was falling apart and needed her daughter's support. Halfway through, I interrupted. "Kayla, is Mom sitting right next to you?" A beat of silence. "Yes, tell her I said goodbye." Click. When that failed, they went public. One morning, I woke up to 20 missed notifications. Derek had posted a rant on Facebook. "Imagine leaving your parents homeless after they raised you. My sister's success has turned her into a monster." The comments were a mix of strangers offering sympathy and people who actually knew me, calling him out. My college roommate wrote, "Didn't your dad laugh at her when she was in the ICU?" Another friend posted screenshots of my parents' Vegas trip, complete with timestamps. Within hours, the thread was a dumpster fire of exposed receipts and family drama. Derek deleted it, but not before it had been shared over 100 times. That's when the harassment started. Blocked numbers calling at all hours, hang-ups, someone pounding on my apartment door at midnight, then disappearing before I could reach the peephole. The breaking point came on a Tuesday afternoon. My office security guard buzzed me from the lobby. Harper? There's a man and woman here asking for you. Say they're your parents." My stomach turned. "Don't let them up." "I already didn't," he said. "But they're insisting." I walked to the elevator just in time to see them arguing with him by the glass doors. Mom spotted me, her face a mask of fake relief. "Harper. Finally. Please. Just 5 minutes." "Security," I said calmly. "These people are harassing me. Please escort them out." They shouted my name as the guards ushered them toward the street. For the first time, I didn't feel guilt. I felt free. By the time the second week rolled around, the line between desperation and outright warfare had vanished. They were no longer just calling me, they were using anyone and everyone as messengers. Old neighbors, distant cousins, even a woman I hadn't spoken to since high school reached out to mediate. Every message had the same undertone: give them back their lifeline, or else. The or else arrived on a Thursday night. I was halfway through dinner when my phone lit up with a string of screenshots from Mia. Derek had posted on Instagram again a grainy photo of me at a college party years ago, drink in hand, captioned, "Some people act all high and mighty now, but they've always been reckless. Guess money just makes them colder." Within minutes, my inbox was flooded with strangers commenting on my looks, my job, my character. But the thing about playing dirty online is that it leaves a trail, and my friends knew exactly how to follow it. By morning, the post was deleted, replaced by a vague apology about family misunderstandings. Too late. I had the screenshots. That weekend, I got a knock at my apartment door. Not pounding this time, deliberate, steady knocks. I opened it to find a manila envelope lying on the floor. No one in sight. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Notice of foreclosure. They'd lost the house. Hours later, the calls began again, but this time they were frantic in a different way. "Harper, you have to help us," Dad pleaded in one voicemail. "The bank says we have weeks before they take everything. If you just co-sign another." I didn't even listen to the rest. Then came the most pathetic attempt yet. A mutual acquaintance texted me to say my parents had set up a GoFundMe titled, "Help a Family Betrayed by Their Own." The description painted me as unstable, vindictive, and ungrateful. They made one fatal mistake. They left it public. Within a day, people from my professional network found it. Comments poured in. "This is pure manipulation. I've worked with Harper for years. She's one of the most generous people I know. If you're the parents who abandoned her in the ICU, you should be ashamed." The page vanished less than 48 hours later. By now, I wasn't just angry. I was done. Done with the calls, the lies, the smear campaigns. So I called Patrick, my lawyer. "I want to file for a restraining order," I told him. "Against all three: Dad, Mom, and Derek. Harassment, defamation, attempted interference with employment. You've got a case," he said. "Are you ready for this to go public?" "Yes." The hearing was set for 2 weeks later. They showed up dressed like they were attending a wedding, smiles plastered on their faces as if charm could erase the paper trail. Dad spoke first, painting a picture of a fragile daughter who had misunderstood their intentions. Mom dabbed at fake tears, saying they'd been too poor to travel to my bedside. Derek claimed I had turned cold and was destroying the family over nothing. When it was my turn, I didn't raise my voice. I didn't have to. I slid a thick folder across to the judge. Inside, screenshots of Dad's text. "Maybe dying will make you interesting." Instagram posts from their Vegas trip. The GoFundMe page. Voicemails laced with threats. Security reports from my office detailing the lobby incident. I finished with one sentence. "Your Honor, these people didn't just abandon me when I almost died, they mocked me for it. And when I stopped paying for their lives, they tried to destroy mine." The judge didn't even hesitate. A temporary restraining order was granted on the spot, with a hearing for a permanent one scheduled a month later. As we left the courtroom, Mom reached for my arm. "Harper, we can work this out." I stepped back. "No. You made lawyers and judges necessary when you chose harassment over accountability." 3 weeks later, the permanent order was issued. No contact, no proximity within 500 feet, no posting about me online. Violation meant arrest. The silence that followed was the sweetest sound I'd heard in years. The day after the restraining order was finalized, I woke up without the familiar knot in my stomach. No buzzing phone, no new smear post to screenshot, no pounding on my door. Just quiet. It was the kind of quiet that makes you realize how loud the chaos used to be. A week later, Mark, my old boss, called. "Harper, I know you're still recovering, but there's an opportunity you need to hear about." The opportunity was a director of cybersecurity position at a fast-growing tech firm, Argent Solutions. Twice my old salary, stock options, and a budget big enough to actually make the changes I'd always dreamed of implementing. They'd heard about a breach I'd prevented in my previous job and wanted me to build their entire security division from the ground up. I didn't even need to think about it. I accepted. My first day felt like stepping into a parallel universe. Corner office, a team of skilled engineers, and leadership that actually respected me. At lunch, the CEO leaned over and said, "The work you did saved our partners millions. We don't take that lightly." Meanwhile, my family was unraveling. Sebastian, my cousin, one of the few relatives who hadn't turned on me, kept me updated without me even asking. "Derek's out of work again," he said in one call. "Your mom's been posting those vague Facebook statuses about being betrayed by blood. Your dad's picking up shifts at a warehouse. They're renting a one-bedroom and arguing constantly." I didn't feel satisfaction, exactly. More like a deep, unshakable certainty that I'd made the right call. Then came the story that made me laugh out loud. Sebastian called, voice half amused, half embarrassed. "Your mom got caught shoplifting, makeup and a wedge of imported cheese. She told the store manager it was your fault." "Let me guess," I said. "She told him I abandoned her while she was struggling." "Exactly. But the manager's daughter had been in the ICU last year. He wasn't buying it. The charges were eventually dropped, but the story made the local news. The headline, 'Local Woman Blames Daughter for Shoplifting Arrest,' was enough to make sure the gossip reached every corner of town. While they were busy blaming me for their own downfall, I was building something worth protecting. My apartment lease ended, and I bought a house in the hills with a view of the city skyline. I adopted a golden retriever named Cooper, who greeted me like I was his entire world every time I walked through the door. I started hiking again, joined a cooking class, and even let myself date without the constant fear that someone would try to dig into my family drama. That's how I met Daniel, a financial analyst with a dry sense of humor and a knack for remembering the smallest details. From the start, I told him the truth that my parents and brother were out of my life for good. I expected him to flinch, maybe even walk away. Instead, he said, "It sounds like you did the healthy thing. Most people never get out." It was strange, letting someone in without the weight of all that baggage on my shoulders. But it was also freeing. For the first time in years, my life was mine. It had been nearly 2 years since the Vegas weekend when I spotted him, my father, in the frozen foods aisle of the local grocery store. He looked smaller somehow, thinner, older, like life had chipped away at him piece by piece. He was holding a coupon booklet in one hand, studying the sales on generic frozen dinners. When he noticed me, his expression shifted from surprise to something I couldn't quite name. Maybe shame, maybe resignation. "You look good," he said quietly. "Healthy, I am," I replied. He hesitated, then spoke. "I know we messed up, Harper. I know we failed you when you needed us most. I don't expect forgiveness, but I wanted you to know I understand what we lost." It was the first time any of them had taken responsibility. No excuses, no spin. "Thank you for saying that," I told him. "But understanding what you lost doesn't undo the damage." He nodded slowly. "I know. I hope someday you might give us a chance to show we've learned." "Maybe someday," I said, though we both knew the chances were slim. Right now, I'm focused on the family I'm building with people who actually care. As I walked away, I felt an unexpected pang. Not guilt, not regret, but pity. Pity for someone who had traded love for control and ended up with neither. That night, I sat on the veranda of my new home, Daniel beside me, Cooper asleep at our feet. The city lights twinkled below, a quiet reminder of how far I'd come. I thought about that girl in the ICU, fever burning through her, believing her family would come. I thought about the text that shattered that illusion. Maybe dying will make you interesting. And I thought about how, in that moment, I chose myself. The strange thing about revenge is that the best kind isn't about hurting those who hurt you. It's about living so well that their absence becomes a blessing, not a wound. They assumed losing me would be temporary, that I'd crawl back with my checkbook and my forgiveness. Instead, they lost the best thing that had ever happened to them, and I finally got the life I'd been too busy funding theirs to realize I wanted. That's a trade I will make every single time.